It's very hard to control the mind with the mind. Or in other words, just telling yourself to calm down or to stop thinking often doesn't really work that well. All right, we say, I just got to calm down, calm down, calm down. And it makes us feel more stressed. Or we say, stop thinking, stop thinking, stop thinking. And you're thinking about not thinking, which of course is a problem. Or you get in a situation where maybe you're trying to help someone else calm down. And often what happens when you suggest to someone that they should calm down? Yeah, the opposite happens. Or maybe you're very wise like me and you've even suggested to a romantic partner that they should calm down. And we know how well that probably tends to go. So what do you do, right? What do you do in this situation? Well, it's important to understand that the nervous system includes both the brain, which is we tend to associate with the experience of mind, and the body. And they're connected through several different interfaces, kind of this neurological mesh which forms the nervous system, but there are even these specific kind of interchanges or intersections like the HPA axis, which is how cognitive stress is passed into the body. And so I say this because it's much easier to control the body, our physiology and our physical expressions, than it is, like I said, to try to change the mind with the mind. So that's a preview of what we'll talk about in this video. I'll explain to you how to take control of your mind. So how to take control of thoughts and emotions using tools like the body. In fact, that's the first letter of an acronym I share called BAT, as in baseball bat, but that stands for body, awareness, and thoughts and language. And what we're going to explain here is that pretty much every psychological state, every emotional state is composed of just those three things: the body, your awareness, and your thoughts. So let's get into it, and we're going to break this down, right? How to take control of your mind with practical neuroscience. So I'll share some of the literature that sets a foundation for how the nervous system and how our mind and body kind of work together. And then I'll give some more practical tools, like I said just now. So here we go. So beginning with an overview of the scientific literature, it may make sense to begin with a gentleman named William James. So William James is, when we think about this connection between the mind and body, he's kind of a pioneer, specifically in the sense of we think about the more modern psychological sciences. So in the late 1800s, he was one of the first, as I said, to really recognize and establish this powerful connection between the mind and the body. And he was also one of these gentlemen that pointed out that those effects can go both ways, right? So that the mind can, of course, change our physiological expression, and then our physiological expressions can change our state of mind. And he went on to publish the James Lange theory of emotion, which actually posits that human experience of emotion arises based on physiological changes in response to external events. So he kind of set a foundation for this. And then when we look at the more modern lens, simply for the sake of time, we're not going to go too far in depth or surveying a ton of different studies. I would say it's kind of consensus science at this point, certainly that our mind influences our physiology and our physiology influences our mind, and there are interventions in both domains that affect the other, right? So kind of mental cognitive changes that change our physical expression, physical changes like changing your breathing pattern, for instance, which is very well researched by several neuroscientists at Stanford, such as Dr. Andrew Huberman, that physical changes in breathing that create changes in your more kind of state of mind and your cognitive tendencies. But there is one study I'll highlight here from researchers at Washington University School of Medicine. It was published in the journal Nature. And what they find is that the body and mind are in fact inextricably intertwined. And what they go on to say is that's more than just kind of a theoretical abstraction. The study showed that parts of the brain area that actually control physical movement are plugged into networks that involve thinking, planning, and control of involuntary bodily functions such as blood pressure and heartbeats. So, paraphrasing from the study, the findings represent a literal linkage of body and mind in the very structure of the brain. So, for example, one thing they did in this study was there's kind of this mapping of the brain, and past neuroscientists have examined it, and they said, hey, we know that this area of the brain, for instance, controls the movement of the feet and hands. So using more modern neuroimaging technology, such as an fMRI machine, they put people in there and they looked at them and they saw, okay, yeah, this area that we think is associated with the movement of the feet and hands is activated, but at the same time, there are these other non-movement areas of the brain being activated as well. And so what they find is that these kind of areas of the brain that seem to be controlling like physical movement in the body are kind of intertwined or intermixed with these areas that are non-movement areas. And so they're quite literally overlapping and, as they point out, inextricably intertwined is kind of a nice way to put it. So we see that modern science, particularly neuroscience, starts to align with something that should be, I think, somewhat intuitive. That our body and mind are not body or mind, or even body and mind, but they're one shared system. In fact, really interesting book called The Heart-Brain Matrix. I think maybe there's more to there's maybe a subtitle, but the key words are the heart-brain matrix, and I'll include a reference to that. But it explains that very thing, that actually the heart has its own kind of neurological systems, and that in a sense, the heart and brain create kind of a matrix, or even it's almost like a shared thinking system or a shared cognitive system, however you want to phrase that. But again, they're connected, right? The mind and body. And a final place where we see this quite clearly is in something called the HPA axis, which stands for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And this is one of the primary mechanisms where stress is transmitted into the body. So the activation of a stressor causes this cascade of changes in hormones, particularly cortisol is one of them that gets released. And then through this axis, it's released into the body, which creates kind of the stress response. And if you've ever been in a very stressful situation, you know that there's, boom, an immediate kind of full body response. Or even if you are in less stressful situations, you may notice it showing up with, you're a little tense in your body, or maybe your breathing's a little shallow, or you're even a little hunched over. And of course, changing your posture creates a potentially corresponding change in your psychology. So what we can see is that there's a pretty strong scientific foundation when it comes to saying, look, we know that the mind controls the body, and we know that the body controls the mind. And maybe controls isn't the right word, right? We can say that the mind influences the body, and the body influences the mind. So this notion kind of actually surfaced, or maybe resurfaced into popularity with something called power posing. Now, you may have seen this popular TED Talk on power posing, where a researcher basically says the following. She says, you can do these postures that tend to be more expansive postures. So something like a flex, or this Wonder Woman pose with your hands on your hips, where you're assuming an expansive physical posture, taking up more space, and you're sort of embodying physically the emotional or psychological state of like confidence and assertiveness. And they said that in their lab, they had people do that, and doing that for several minutes decreased cortisol, which is the stress hormone associated with anxiety, and increased testosterone, which in this context is associated with like risk-taking and assertiveness and boldness. And so they said, well, this is pretty incredible. Now, there was some controversy around that, though, because several researchers attempted to replicate the findings of that study and failed to. But barring some of this debate, the most conclusive paper I could find is a meta-study. Now, a meta-study, if you're not familiar with it, is essentially a study of studies. So, you have an experiment, or you have a study, or you have whatever. A meta-study picks a certain topic or a certain thing you're trying to understand and looks at a bunch of different papers, a bunch of different studies, and is, again, a study about all of those studies, and says, what is the common pattern here, or what can we sort of gather from the data as a whole? And now, in this one, it's called Standing Tall and Standing Wide. Body positions have effects on how people feel. Now, in this sample they used is the largest sample of studies on body positions so far. They looked at 128 experiments with a total of almost 10,000 participants. So when participants took kind of powerful or upright postures, they felt better and were more confident than when they took kind of contractive or hunched body positions. So they did see, right? You can imagine that more upright, more expansive, as you can imagine, right? Just like feeling confident or feeling like you're going to attack, as opposed to kind of like this, making yourself small. did produce changes in how people feel. The effects held true for males and females of all ages in both Eastern and Western countries, the researchers say. There were also some effects on behaviors, such as task persistence and social versus antisocial behavior. There was no evidence for effects on hormones, like in the original study, or other physiological indicators such as like heart rate. So, to summarize, what the results suggest is that body positions can be useful when we think about like training or coaching or therapy for empowering people with tools to change how they're feeling or even how they're perceiving their own feelings. He said people who observe their bodily expression may experience a change in their self-evaluations and may also behave differently. So they summarize it by saying taking a certain body position could be a first step in increasing positive self-perceptions. So, right, maybe not evidence there yet to suggest that it does cause that cascading effect of reducing cortisol and increasing testosterone, but certainly evidence to indicate that when you do assume a more upright or powerful posture, you tend to feel better and feel more confident. So we're starting to understand here again, trying to begin with a grounding in some of the scientific literature, that there is something to be said for this mind-body connection, and particularly how the body can influence the mind, right? So we tend to think of it as a one-way street. But when you look at the neurology, there's just as much information, if not more, coming from the body into the mind as there is going from the mind to the body. So when we think about that most recent meta-study, we think about some of the foundational work, like I referenced that study from Washington, as well as just the broader field of neuroscience and psychology, we can really see that the nervous system is one thing, right? It includes both the mind and the body. And that sets us up for the second part of this video, where I'm going to explain how to change your physiology to change your psychological state and control your mind. And then I'll also include a couple other things like awareness and changing your thoughts and language itself. So let's get into that. So now we'll begin a discussion of how can I actually control the mind? Like, Jackson, how do I actually do this stuff? Well, here's all you need to remember is an acronym, BAT. As in baseball bat or flying, scary, weird cave bird bat. And that stands for body, awareness, thoughts, and language. So every psychological state, every mental state, I believe, really comes down to those three things. Your body, your awareness, your thoughts, and language. So let me give you an example, right? Let's say you are feeling maybe insecure or anxious or something. So how would an anxious or insecure person probably look, right? Are they going to be like walking into the room like, hey, what's up? No, they're kind of probably going to be, a little bit like this. And then where's their awareness going to be? Their attention. And we can mean that both literally or more kind of intellectually. So their awareness is probably down, right? Not necessarily walking in like this, but their gaze is usually down. But also their internal awareness. Where is it going? Well, usually it's on them, self-conscious, right? They're not out there in their environment. They're not down in their body, but they're usually up in their head thinking, oh, what should I say? Or are people going to talk to me or whatever? And their attention or their awareness tends to be going towards things like what could go wrong, things that I could be worried about, trying to anticipate things and correct for them. And then finally, thoughts or thoughts and language. What would the thoughts be for an anxious person? Are they going to be feeling like I can do this or I can't do this? Are they going to be thinking about what's going to go right or what's going to go wrong? Right? How is their language going to be about their own self-image? Are they going to say, oh yeah, I'm feeling really good, I can do this? Or are they going to be more like hesitant? Right? Even when they're talking as well, how's their language going to be? Probably quieter, yeah, and maybe even a little bit faster, kind of like, oh, hey, it's really nice to meet you, as opposed to someone saying, hey, it's so nice to meet you. Although, granted, that last example, if someone greeted you like that, you'd probably be like, what the hell's, are you like a weird salesman or something? But you get my point. So let's break these down a little bit more in depth for each one. So body, say, how can I control my mind with my body? Well, there's so many things you can look at. You have all of these resources, these biological resources that you can use to create a change up here. Your posture, your breathing, your movement, and your facial expressions, right? So your posture, right? If you want to feel more confident or if you want to feel more relaxed, if you want to feel whatever, how would you physically embody it? You know, pretend that you're trying to win an Oscar, or whatever the other one is, Golden Globe Award for Best Actor or Best Actress. You know, how would your body be? If you were really confident, you'd be like, yes, let's go. If you were really excited, you'd be like freaking out like this. But then same thing, you notice just now when you can probably even hear it in my voice, as I brought in that physical expression of excitement, my breathing got a little more agitated. But then if I wanted to say, how would I look physically with respect to my body and my respiration, if I were to get super duper relaxed, just like really chill, you know? You can see it in probably because of something that I'll explain in a different video called the emotional contagion, is that you have a ton of neurons in your brain that are dedicated to processing and actually mirroring the emotions. So what I imagine in a very subtle way is that even as you saw me get really excited and increase my breathing and embody that, you probably felt maybe 5% more activated. And then when I come way down and get very calm and slow in my breathing, and I even relax my torso, you probably noticed you got like 5% more chill. So, you know, same thing, we can say movement, even with the hands right there. And then of course our facial expression. You know, sometimes when I'm in my events, I'll say people to do this. So maybe you want to do this too, and don't do it if you're driving, but you can close your eyes and just you know, relax the muscles of your jaw, your cheeks, your eyes, your face, etc. And now just think of lifting the corners of your mouth towards your eyes while keeping the rest of your face relaxed. So do that. And then try to separate your lips so that you're showing me your teeth and gums with that same pose. So then I go, we call that smiling. And you probably feel better if you do it. In fact, I've seen studies, I don't have the literature in front of me, that show just, you know, even smiling or laughing, even when it's kind of intentional or forced, just doing it by yourself, it creates those same changes in your neurochemistry that are associated with genuinely laughing or genuinely feeling good. So the first place, if you want to control the mind, is always, boom, go to the body first. So that is your physiology. How are you moving? How are you breathing? How are you holding yourself? And your expression, right? What's your face look like? You know, sometimes I catch myself doing this too if I'm having a really stressful day at work. Like, you know, I'll be sitting on my computer typing an email or like drafting an article or something, and I'm sitting there like, and then I'm like, oh, why does... It's like, I want to be happy. Maybe I should like tell my face to be happy too. And so leveraging any of these biological resources is a very powerful way to create an immediate change in state of our kind of cognitive and psychological state. So the second piece I said is attention, right? So how is our attention? So again, we'll think about using the analogy of like maybe a kind of depressed or kind of sad person who's just not in a good place. So when it comes to their attention, what they're focusing on, would their gaze be up or down, you think? Like that or like that? Yeah, probably down. Would they be bringing their attention towards problems or solutions? Towards what could go wrong or what could go right? If you thought about how they feel about maybe their goals, do you think that their attention on their goals would feel like things were really far away or really close up? Would they feel very bright and vivid, or would they feel kind of gray and, I don't know, kind of not so vivid? So all of these things, right, relate to your attention, and it could be more literal, like your visual attention, or again, kind of your internal attention, right? Same thing, is that anxious, really self-conscious, anxious person, their attention's probably not going to be out there or on what they're doing, but it's going to be on how do I look, or people, you know, looking at me, am I okay? So what can you do? Well, you can change your attention. First of all, it's just shifting your gaze from down to up, right? And that creates a physiological change because you're taking your chin up. Maybe you can say, okay, how about I bring my attention to, instead of the 5 or 6 things that are really pissing me off or going wrong or frustrating me, what are 5 or 6 things that are going right now? Or maybe a step that's a little less emotional, but a little more practical would be, again, if there's a certain project that's producing an anxiety reaction or a stress reaction, would be say, all right, well, instead of thinking about all the things that are going wrong with this or how hard it's going to be, what if I were to just shift my cognitive attention to 5 possible solutions? Okay, so you can start to see why shifting that attention is a very powerful mechanism for this as well. And then the third one, right, thoughts and language. So we'll use the same example. You have a depressed person, a sad person, an anxious person. Are they going to be saying, I have to or I want to? Are they going to be saying, I should or I will? They're going to be saying, I can or I can't. And then if they're actually conversing with another person, you think their voice is going to be kind of soft and slow and maybe even like down here? Or is it going to be, loud and really vibrant? Even paying attention to the specific words people use could be something that gives you a hint, right? Or the words kind of these mundane or negative context of like, oh, I don't know, it's been pretty tough. Or how are you doing? I guess I'm okay. It's been pretty good. So, right? Even if you had no change in the kind of the tone of their voice or some of these other hints, you could say, those thoughts and language, as opposed to someone maybe saying like, oh, I'm outstanding, or things are going really well, or I'm on top of the world. So again, though, those are things that we can control, right? Not necessarily in the same way that we can control the body, but certainly we can challenge our own patterns, our own stories, and our own use of thoughts and language, right? If we keep going back to this idea of like, oh, there's no way I can get this project done, or this video I'm working on is going to suck, or oh, I have to do this video. I can use a cognitive intervention to say, well, I don't think this video is going to suck. In fact, I think this video will be really good. And it's not that I have to do this, but I'm choosing to do this and I want to do this. And it's not that I don't know if I can do it. It's like, no, I have done difficult things before and I know I can do this difficult thing now. So you have right there 3 different kind of levers, so to speak, that you can do to change your state. And what I would challenge you to do right now, even if you're feeling pretty decent, is to just go through right now, real quick, 3 of those. Remember, BAT, right in a row. So if you were to pick an emotion right now that you kind of want to feel, it could just be like joy, right? How would in your body, and again, maybe you have to be careful doing this if you're in public. You don't want people to think that you're having some sort of psychic break here. And if you're driving, same thing. But, how would your body be if you were really joyful and excited, right? It would be more upright. Your breathing would increase. Your movement would be like this, kind of positively agitated. Your face would light up. You'd be like, yes, I'm excited. Let's go. This feels good, right? So try to embody that. Now, again, where would your attention go? Well, it probably would go not towards the present, but actually towards the future. If you're thinking about excitement, something that excites you. But it would also be thinking about things that your attention would be going towards things that you want to do or that are kind of positive things, right? And your attention also is probably up. So you're saying, oh yeah, like I'm thinking of all these things and I've got this trip coming up and I'm actually tonight when I'm done with this video, I'm going to go visit my friends, and boom, my attention's going there. And then finding your thoughts and language, right? If you're really excited, what would it be? It would tend to be positive language. Things like, yeah, this is great. This is good. I'm thankful. I'm excited. I'm whatever. So right there, just so you practice that, and just see if you notice even a 10% shift in maybe a few minutes ago when you started watching this video or midway through the video versus now. If you just practice, and you can even pause me here for say a minute and just try to shift each one: body, awareness, thoughts and language. And I think if you try that, you will notice a pretty immediate change in your state of mind. And ultimately, you're going to empower yourself right there with kind of the practical neuroscience of how to take better control of the mind, or our experience of mind. Because like I said at the outset of this video, it's quite hard to just control the mind with the mind. But you use these tools, you're going to have a much easier time doing that. So there you have it. Some of the resources I referenced are down below, as well as a couple other ones. I have my living knowledge base of happiness research and insights, which you can find at studyhappiness.notion.site, as well as my 2 websites where I share written newsletters and other tools, all of it for free, that are about the science and the art of happiness to help you be at your best in work and life. So this has been your happiness nerd, Jackson Kirchis. You can check out this video, which YouTube recommends for you if you want. But until next time, sending you happiness, and thanks for watching.